Atomic Habits, Tiny Habits, and The Power of Habit are hailed as the three holy grail titles for improving our productivity. But do they actually offer different insights? Or are they just repackaging the same ideas in a more marketable wrapper? Well, yes and no. At the core of each book is the understanding that small, consistent actions profoundly shape who we become and how we operate. While their emphasis varies, they all acknowledge that habits and identity are intertwined, whether as a driving force or an eventual outcome. They also converge on this crucial point. Motivation is unreliable. Willpower is a finite but often weak resource. Instead, our environment, the structure of the behavior, and the emotional triggers matter far more. All three authors caution against pursuing drastic, unsustainable changes driven by temporary bursts of motivation. Neurologically, they all root their ideas in the science of habit loops. Basal ganglia, the area of the brain responsible for pattern recognition and automation, frees up cognitive resources by running habits on autopilot. Once a loop is formed, our brain effectively outsources the decision making for that behavior, which is why breaking existing habits is a lot harder than wiring new habits. But from this shared foundation, their individual paths and primary tools begin to diverge. Charles Duhigg's strength lies in diagnosing and analyzing behavior. His book, The Power of Habit, focuses on why habits emerge and how they function, rather than solely providing prescriptive steps for building new ones. His book is ideal for those who want to understand the system before attempting to rebuild it. The Power of Habit centers around the habit loop: cue, routine, reward. The cue is a trigger, an environmental or internal signal that tells our brain to let a habit unfold automatically. This leads to the routine, which is the behavior or action itself, what we do in response to the cue. Finally, the reward is the benefit or pleasure the brain receives, which reinforces the loop and make it more likely to occur again in the future. Charles Duhigg also introduces the concept of keystone habits. These are small, seemingly insignificant habits that, when changed or adopted, can trigger a cascade of other positive changes in a person's or organization's life. Keystone habits are powerful because they can alter our sense of self and what feels possible, making it easier for us to tackle other areas for improvement. What makes the power of habit different is that Duhigg excels in illustrating principles with real world examples, demonstrating their impact on everything from corporate change at companies like Starbucks to understanding consumer behavior such as Target's use of predictive algorithms. The power of habit is often cited in the context of behavioral economics for its clear explanation of concepts. However, while Duhigg provides an excellent framework for understanding and replacing habits, his model offers less of a detailed blueprint for building new positive habits from scratch. This makes The Power of Habit less tactical than newer books. It is also the earliest published title amongst the trio and could be perceived as a little dated. Since then, newer titles such as Atomic Habits have built upon Duhigg's habit loop model and refining the strategies for habit formation and change. However, the power of habit's enduring value lies in its ability to make complex psychological and neurological concepts understandable and to provide a refreshing perspective to help us think about the often unseen forces shaping our daily lives. Atomic Habits is the best selling title amongst the three, and it's easy to see why. James Clear's genius isn't novelty, it's packaging. Atomic Habits has masterfully synthesized concepts from Duhigg, Fogg, and broader behavioral science into a sleek, highly readable package without academic jargons. His four laws of behavior change mirrors the habit loop but are layered with actionable tactics. Make it obvious by designing your environment and using implementation intentions to make cues unavoidable. Make it attractive by using temptation bundling and joining cultures where your desired behavior is the norm to increase the pool of the habit. Make it easy by reducing friction, shrinking habits down to a 2-minute rule, and using automation to reduce the effort required. Make it satisfying by using immediate reinforcement like habit tracking or small rewards to make the habit feel good in a moment, thus increasing the likelihood of repetition. He also powerfully ties habits to identity. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Atomic Habits shifts the conversation from what should I do to who am I striving to be. This narrative hook is psychologically potent. It taps into the self concept theory and the consistency bias, our innate desire to act in ways that align with our perceived identity. The goal is not to read a book, the goal is to become a reader. What makes Atomic Habits different is that Clear brings significant emotional resonance and aspirational drive to habit formation. He connects habit to identity better than the others, and his writing style and examples are also probably the most accessible. However, there has been critique over Atomic Habits borrowing heavily from Duhigg and Fogg and being overly simplified for the mass market rather than a deep dive into academic research. In comparison with the other two titles, Atomic Habits glosses over the deeper emotional and structural roots of behavior, making it run the risk of misrepresenting the complex reality of changing entrenched behaviors or addictions. It assumes that you're already operating from a place of relative stability. These criticisms don't necessarily negate the book's value, but rather they offer different perspectives on its contribution, depth, and approach compared to academic texts or other works in the behavioral science field. Fogg, a Stanford researcher, offers the most methodologically rigorous model born from years of experimental work. He treats habits like design problems. Fogg's method is built around success momentum. The idea is that the positive feelings from success breeds repetition. The fundamental factor is not the number of reps, but the emotion from wins that drives habit. Celebrating small wins gives them something to repattern our life around. So, his elegant solution is to drastically shrink our habits down to something so small that it's impossible to fail. His behavior model posits that behavior occurs when motivation, ability, and a prompt converge simultaneously. If any of these three are absent, the habit won't happen. Since motivation is unreliable, Fogg's method focuses on increasing ability, making the behavior so tiny that it can be completed in less than 30 seconds, and ensuring a reliable prompt, an anchor moment from an existing routine. For example, after I brush my teeth, I will stretch for 10 seconds. And then, crucially, performing an immediate celebration after completing the tiny behavior. This celebration, even if it's a small internal feeling of success or a physical movement, creates positive emotion that wires the habit into the brain. This practical and easy to follow guide builds momentum by making the new behaviors feel rewarding and automatic, allowing it to grow naturally over time without depending on high levels of willpower. What makes Tiny Habits different is that Fox's work is engineering based and highly practical. Surprisingly, it is also probably the most compassionate model. If you've ever felt ashamed of failing at habit change, Fox's message is very clear. It's not your fault, it's the design. This makes Tiny Habits work exceptionally well for people struggling with burnout or decision fatigue. However, it can feel too soft for ambitious people. It's hard to see how flossing one tooth will get you to start your own company or to write a book. The book doesn't necessarily engage with habit scaling. It's focused on getting the plane off the runway, but not navigating once you are in the air. Fogg also places a less direct emphasis on linking habits to a grand long term identity or overarching narrative. While he champions the positive emotions of success via celebration, he doesn't necessarily focus on the why or who am I becoming in the same way as Clear. Now that we've gone through the main differences in the books, we can see that each title is incomplete on its own. But instead of treating them as competing products, we can approach them as complementary models that build up to a full stack system. By weaving together the foundational understanding of habit mechanics, the powerful initiation tactics for making habits tiny and celebrated, and the systematic approach to designing for consistency and identity, we can create a robust strategy tailored to our own behavior change goals. I hope this video was helpful and see you in the next one.